All right, welcome back to the Jimmy Talks podcast. As always, like, subscribe, comment, and actually share to your mates and tag me in it or tag someone in it because it helps with our reach and it helps with getting better guests on. And if you're coming to the Con Expo 2026, I have a discount code to help you out with your ticket prices. It's Starbuck30. This code will give you 30% off. It's valid until December 5th, so use it to help out with the ticket prices, and I hope to see you there. Alrighty, welcome back to another episode, and today we are here with Chris Newton, founder of EEA Group and HSE Pacific.
Yes, thank you, Jimmy. Great to be here. Thank you very much.
The introductions keep getting longer and longer as people who are more important, such as yourself, have multiple titles.
Don't know about that.
On the way down. So, as the start, we always do the same thing. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do in the industry, and off you go.
Certainly, Jimmy. My career started at the age of 20. No degrees. Wasn't smart enough at school to be able to, get into uni. But was good at sport, and I got a job in finance broking, financing heavy equipment for a company called Moody Cadell and Partners. Two brilliant mentors, David Cadell and Terry Moody, and for 15 years enjoyed learning everything about earth-moving equipment, financing earth-moving equipment, profit and loss, balance sheets, and in turn met some brilliant people in the civil space over that time that just were brilliant in regards to educating, what's important as they grow. Over that 15 years, went from 7 people to 70 people. And it was a great opportunity, multiple from one branch, in Artarmon to multiple branches around the country. And David and Terry trusted me to, be a partner at 25, which was young, and loved it, loved every minute of it. I got an opportunity to be on site with Komatsu, doing all their retail finance for, 4 years out at Fairfield. Cool. And that chance to understand a multinational, multi-billion-dollar business, coming from a small finance broking firm into that behemoth was just such a brilliant opportunity, and as a young person, same as yourself, Jimmy, when you have that chance to learn off, well-versed, well-experieused people. It's great.
Probably the most important thing that happens in your career, who you surround yourself with and who you're engaging with early on, because your network turns into your net worth.
Yes.
And, the fact that you got to hang around with what sounds like to be some fairly high flyers.
Just some great guys. I'll point out one of them, Burton Contractors, John and Trish Burton. John is a legend up in New South Wales, grew a brilliant big business. His 2 sons, Chris and Paul, run it now. But John, for the first 2 years, I'd arrived to site and literally I was green as grass, and he'd be buying machines every single month and doing big commercial subdivision, both resi and commercial subdivisions and roads, et cetera, And for the first 3 years, really he gave me absolutely nothing. Old school, hardcore contractor at the coalface every single day. Made me meet him at 6 a.m. on site every single time I had to sign documents. And then I'd go and see Trish, who would be just the most lovely wife in the office, in their home, and
isn't that nice?
It was magic, and he was very direct in regards to where success comes from a civil business, and from his opinion.
And where does he reckon it comes from?
The coalface, absolute coalface. He goes, Chris, this is where margins made, and he goes, he's got a big business. They were turning over, tens of millions of dollars at this particular time. And he goes, Chris, the guys in the office absolutely play a part and I need it. And he goes, but you make and lose all your money here on site. And he goes, you've got to be at the coalface. You've got to understand what's happening. You've got to get production and variations. No job will run perfectly, And he was brilliant. After 3 years, he threw me a high vis, and I jumped in his old Hilux with the old wind-down windows, and he said, come and you may as well bloody learn what I do for a living, so come along and I'll drive you around site. And for the next 10 years of my life, that was a monthly routine, and it was brilliant, and I saw other companies grow from new venture through to 40 million turnover and then drop straight off. And, a lot of those fundamentals, and they celebrated 50 years in business, last year, and to still have those bonds and connections 29 years, I'm 49, 29 years later is brilliant. John's still arriving at the office, and he's still there. Chris and Paul obviously growing it brilliantly, but yeah, it was magic
Amazing.
time.
And so then you moved from that in and moved into
embracing rejection and starting to import plant and equipment. A very good client of mine who is a Pommy fella said, look, these site dumpers, we don't use skid steers over in the UK. These site dumpers, all your material goes from your excavator into your site dumper, and your site dumper can go anywhere, swivel, skip, you can place your material anywhere. It's going to be a big thing.
And everyone has now seen them on site. You imported the Thwaites.
Thwaites, yeah. Thwaites have been the longest standing since 1936. They're owned by Lord Dolverton over there in the UK. It's a brilliant business, and we're rapt to still partner with those guys.
You're still selling them now?
Still selling them now across the country, national exclusivity for them, yeah, which is great.
So if you've seen a Thwaites dumper on site, it came through you?
Came from me, yeah. But 3 years of just trying to get contractors to understand a different methodology.
Well, even when I started, like the Thwaites dumpers were fucking dumb. Really, like everyone's like, why would I move it I think they were like a 3-ton one and a 6-ton one
3,
or something.
6 and 9s.
There we go. So
oath.
there was like 3-ton, and they're like, they move bugger all. They still take someone to drive it. They can be a little bit zippy around on site, but then they're a little bit unstable as well.
Articulating, oscillating, and treat it like a go-kart and she'll tip over. But it was a great learning experience, and myself, my business partner, Michael Smith, who I'm still with today, he knows plant and equipment better than anyone. He worked with CAT and Sumitomo and all of those companies. So he's got all of the hydraulic mechanical experience. And I looked after the methodology, marketing, and the building of the business as such, and he was brilliant at being able to, put the pieces together, the detail, and we always wanted to grow into more than just Thwaites. We wanted to get into general line construction, and very fortunately, we got that opportunity with Case and Case Construction, and we're the 5th dealer in 10 years in New South Wales. And Jimmy, as you know, doesn't matter the sticker on the side of a digger if you haven't got someone to ring when it stuffs up.
Yeah, that's actually what it ends up being about, more than what colour it's painted.
Exactly.
It ends up being who answers the phone and how much do they want to help you. Because especially I've found either there's a sweet spot in the middle of size of company, right?
Yes.
If they're too big, then your phone call goes nowhere. And if they're too small, they might not have the ability or the pull to get you what you need. You need to be in the sweet spot with some great OEM support.
Yep. Yes, certainly.
And then that the phone's answered by you or someone close to you, or you're getting the report of it so that you're part of it.
You need to be able to reach the bloke that actually can make something happen.
Yeah.
And
whoever that bloke may be.
Whoever that may be, and our business, we're the 5th dealer in 10 years for Case. So you can imagine.
That's not good maths.
No, it's not. No. So we very much understood exactly what we're taking on. We're taking on a customer base that had very little faith, very little trust in long-term support. We knew what we were taking on, but Case were a large worldwide brand, and we had plenty of opportunity to make something of it if we, the only thing we could control was how we cared for a customer, and myself and Mick, we were driven by that. And over the first year we were with Case, the previous dealer had done 40 machines. We pumped out 125 in our first year. And we're very fortunate.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, over the next 10 years, we're very fortunate enough to be their biggest dealer in Australia, and we took on Lugong, and we built a plan hire business with Solution Plan Hire out to 300 odd machines as well.
Multi-state Solution
Multi-state,
Plan Hire as well.
Yeah, all along the East Coast. And then 4 years ago, again, we decided that we needed to continue to evolve, and we started to diversify away from construction sales, or not focus solely on construction sales and have all of our risk in that space. So the big green wood chippers that people would see around the country, Michael and I own that business. So we bring all the big bandits in, and very, very proud to bring the Hansa chippers in from New Zealand. Martin and the team over at Hansa, massive shout out. They do your smaller entry-level chippers and track chippers from 6-inch to 12-inch. And, when it comes to adversity and partnering with people that jump in trenches, which is very, very important in tough times, and we're seeing some of that now. You know, the team at Hansa demonstrated that to us. We're just entering the commercial space with their chippers. We'd just taken them on here in Australia across our branches around the country, and they had a factory fire that burnt down basically the whole factory, you know.
That's a bad day.
And Martin Vogel, he's the owner. It's generational business, and Martin just bit on he just bit down, and he rebuilt the factory and made improvements, did a brilliant job. And now we're getting, we're doing large amount of Hansers across the country, as well as our larger commercial bandits as well. So that's been a business now of 5 years that we've had. And at the same time, with that transition of our business, I started working heavily with a company called Safety Shield Global out of the UK around AI safety. And that's, I suppose, what we're going to talk a little bit about today.
That's how we ended up getting here, I suppose.
Yeah, it certainly was. Aurelia, one of your lovely teammates here, reached out. Obviously,
job needing some AI safety.
Pedestrian proximity is the
pedestrian proximity. How could I forget those quite easy words to say and roll off of the tongue? So we need a machine to either stop or give an alarm if someone walks close to it. Is that?
It certainly is. Certainly is, and that will grow to. Also,
does it stop?
Yes. Yeah.
So the machine will actually stop itself if you go into I think you call them a red zone.
Red
is
zone,
that right?
So close to machine with no driver interaction. You know, so I suppose, Jimmy, I'll ask you the question. You've been on the sticks a long time. You've been on a lot of sites. You know, have you been on a site where there's been an injury with people and plant?
Yeah, I actually caused an injury with a person and plant, which I can tell you about. She was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was working underneath some wires, and someone had forgotten something and didn't have their high vis on and ran back over onto the site to get it. I had my spotter in front of me, but I was turning around underneath and I had the boom right out. So far out in the middle of the night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, you're focusing on what you're having to do.
Yes, and then some guy who's now just stopped in my slew zone on the wrong side of me as well, so I can't see.
Yep.
I whacked him.
Yep.
And he went flying, absolutely flying. Thank God he was okay.
Yeah.
I probably got as close as having one of those panic attacks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't meant to be there. He wasn't dressed in high vis. He didn't have a hard hat on. If I had been 2 metres above the ground, I would have clipped him on the head.
Yep.
Just all really a really
bloody
bad
scary moment.
Yeah,
bloody scary moment.
And I still, you asked me, and we haven't discussed this at all before we sit down here.
Yep.
You asked me if I've had interaction myself with plant and equipment and people. Yes, and it was one of the, I tell you what, if you're feeling sleepy at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., that'll wake you up. You're not going to sleep. You're not going to sleep. And everyone was saying to me, they're like, "Oh, were you sleepy? Were you drowsy?" And I'm like, I wasn't. He's standing in the fucking dark with no high vis on. He wasn't there. The spotters got their head so far up their ass that they're not looking at anything because it's also hard for them to be on 12 hours a day
100%.
or 10 hours a night
100%.
or whatever it is.
Yep.
And just thank God the guy got up, almost a fair bump, play on, sort of thing. And fuck,
and
what's that?
racing,
oh, man! Then you're waiting on safety to come down and rip you a new one and go over your machine, and
then your swims and your this, and
your fatigue and your safety, and did you have your mandatory 15-minute break at 1 a.m?
Yeah.
And you go, well, I had a cigarette and a coffee, but
does that count?
Yeah, I don't know if I wrote it down in my book before I poleaxed the guy with the boom, which not taking any of it out, but the mistakes happen, and I suppose that what you're here to talk about today is maybe let's limit some more of those mistakes.
Absolutely, and education and behaviour, and culture. Being in this industry 29 years now, been on plenty of sites, both good and bad, where you see things that are scary, and other sites that are brilliant. And you would have seen the same. So 5 years ago, Safety Shield Global came to us and they said, "We're building this AI. It's brilliant." Over in Europe, there's already some major tier ones that are looking at mandating it. We want a partner in Australia. And look, we've built new tech. We've taken new product to market. So it's something that I enjoy. It's a nice part of the job to go, okay, how can I create something that's going to change the market? And
and so
this opportunity
you already
was
did it
huge.
with Thwaites. When you rocked up, it's like, hey, I got Thwaites, and they're like, yeah, they're fucking dumb.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you don't go to a site without them. Like
No,
now everyone's like, they are so handy, a big motorised wheelbarrow.
Oh, bloody oath.
We need them.
Yeah, bloody oath.
So
They're great.
I'm guessing they were hoping you'd do the same thing with AI, rock up and say, hey, I got an AI system.
Yeah.
That was a bit dumb.
And look, like most manufacturers, we've developed, engineered this brilliant product, and everyone's going to love it. And I'm like, in time.
Yeah.
Australia and Australians, we've got a methodology and we've got a way of doing things.
Yeah.
And it takes time. It took us 3 years to get Kennard's coats, jumping into our dumpers. It was 3 years of knocking on doors and rejection. So at that time, I said, well,
you do look like a bloke who's had a bit of rejection in his life.
Bloody 18-year-old on the dance floor. The more rejection you get, the closer you are. And we knew the journey, and we've taken the journey. So I made a big commitment to them that I wanted to really drive this space. I believed in it. By this time, we'd had branches across the country. I've got mobile field service techs guys running around everywhere. And like yourself, the odd injury in your workplace happens.
It does.
And you've got to learn from it. Near miss reports are becoming fewer. And that's not me saying it. We work with the Quarry Association. We work with RHSQ, which is Resource Health Safety Queensland, Government Department.
That flew off of your tongue saying that.
RHSQ.
You've done that before.
I have, double shifts up in Mackay at their forums and then Toowoomba. So, and then near miss reports are, it's going two ways. Near miss reports are going down, but injuries are going up in that mining space. So there's a fear of a near miss, and the fear is, what's the consequence when I put a near miss report in? So in turn, the learnings are being missed at the same time.
It's really interesting because I've spoken about this before, that there's that they call it the next gear of safety, that says the closer you get to zero incidences of slip, strips, falls, minor cuts and abrasions, the closer someone is to dying. Because if you're focusing so much on that, or if you're focusing on the wrong thing, that you don't notice the big things.
Yeah.
And I think that safety sometimes needs to have, they need to wheel it back and say, hey, it's not just all about buntings on footpaths, and stuff like that. Like, what are we actually doing? Or there has been really no upgrades apart from telling an operator to not hit someone.
Yeah, bloody oath.
In terms of that. And if there is the technology out there, some sites definitely need this.
Oh, exactly. So we started 5 years ago, and I was very fortunate that because of our plan hire business, I could put it on our dry hire gear, get it on site, and people would understand proof of concept. So we're
able. It's a bit challenging. I've done that myself with a few bits and pieces, and you put it on site, and people will go, "That's fucking annoying." Or just give me the one without it.
Absolutely. And in turn, if you try to create a system that's a one size fits all, it just doesn't work, particularly not in the civil space. Every job is different. Every application is different. And the biggest thing about safety, I believe, that safety can play a part, without impeding productivity. You're running your own business, so am I. Productivity is profit, And if you are impeding into that productivity space through unrealistic safety procedures, then, that's when there's kickback. That's when rules are broken or protocols are broken. So how do we develop a system that can completely adapt to individual applications? So 5 years ago, the journey started. First 3 years, it was like Thwaites, embrace rejection at every turn. More around, everyone had watched the bloody Terminator and Cyberdyne systems, and it's going to take over the world. AI is going to take over the world. We're all going to be stuffed.
Yeah, we're all fucked.
We're all fucked. 100%.
We are.
Yeah, that's where we're going to be, and Cyberdyne system we're going to do. So I started off with Prezos, with the Terminator. I said, now everyone's seen this, and it's held me back for years, but I'm telling you, this is going to be, provide a 100% safer site. I can guarantee it.
Yep.
So what we do with our AI safety and with Safety Shield, we can fit it on any asset. Doesn't matter what type of asset. And we can configure the zone to suit. So I'll give you a perfect example. First 3 years, embrace rejection. I strategically went after the top tiers, so your BHPs, your Rios, your Thies, Hollands, Lang O'Rourke, BMDs, blah, 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 all the big guys that can have an influence, including government, local government as well. So we're now in a space which I'm unbelievably fortunate where, we're onboarded with BHP and Rio and in their rail section, which is, even more compliance goes into that space, passing all the cybersecurity side. But, I'll give you an example with Rio Tinto on their high rail gear. They wanted the front section where they're doing all the work and the track work. They want to make sure that no one, that people are going in there, but there's double positive comms to be able to enter into that space. So with Safety Shield, we have a digital thumbs up. So it's got a red cross across it, LED red cross or a green thumbs up. Now, the operator needs to have an interaction or needs to be able to see the person wanting to come in and needs a physical action to be able to then press the button for then there to be an audible and a visual to say, yes, I've seen you, come in. So we've got a 7-camera system.
There's a bit on there.
Yes, it is. So we've done a 7-camera system. Bloke wants to come in, press the button, goes green, tells him to come in with caution. So your operator knows he's coming in. He can still do his work.
No guy in the middle of the night coming in his jumper because I'm pretty sure the part that I can't remember is what he had left there. Let's say he'd left his lunchbox on something, one of the pallets that I was working near or something like that, and then got in his car, forgot my lunchbox, ran back to where I was, ran past the machine. At just that moment, I slew around and absolutely wrecked him.
You would have grabbed in that exact situation. We would have said, what size machine were you in?
15.
15, righto. So let's say we had a 10-metre protocol zone. So that's a yellow zone. We would have set a 10-metre zone around the machine. So as soon as he entered that 10-metre, there would have been a visual alert for him to say go away, and you've got a little pedestrian indicator that would have shined yellow to say he was coming from your blind side, and there's an audible warning in there. Now he's continued to come through that yellow zone into a red zone with no interaction with you.
Yeah.
Then we would have been able to create an autonomous stop on that machine.
So the machine stops.
Comes to a stop.
Yeah. And it comes to a stop hydraulically, I'm assuming.
Yep, correct.
Like you put a cutout and then like the relief valve opens or something.
Yeah, depending upon the client, the asset, the age of the asset, there's a whole heap of variables in there. And then the beauty of it is we capture that video when he goes into that red zone, 5 seconds before and 5 seconds after. We capture that video and I'll send it to you. We've got a bespoke safety intelligence platform, so that video will come through and the statistics will come through to you.
And why it happened, who is in the wrong, I assume?
We don't make the judgment as to who's in the wrong. That's obviously up,
it's got to be company. Hard on the bloke in the machine would very rarely be in the wrong, you would think.
95% of we've been doing this a fair while with tier ones, big sites. 95% of the highly dangerous events we see has nothing to do with the operator. It's third party around machine.
It's someone possibly not inducted into the process, or someone who doesn't want, has been part of it, but says, "Fuck this, I'm going to run and get the shovel."
Every one of those combinations. The big high risk areas are your third party interaction. So councils in parks, etc. Waste facilities. Again, you've got third party truck drivers. Any uncontrolled third party is where we can bring some control, as well as even controlled assets, at the same time. So the waste space, you've got a lot of third-party truck drivers driving in to dump their rubbish. They bloody put their high vis on, jump out of the truck, wheel back to,
with their slides, they've,
with the thongs on, they jump out, and then, you'll be amazed. They'll see something in a garbage pit, and the waste owners have got wheel loaders, as you know, you've done it plenty of times, moving around, shuffling, lifting, compacting, etc. And those third parties, there's no induction process at a weighbridge, mate. You're driving in. And some of the truck drivers these days, might struggle, to understand the reading or the language piece as well. So how do I control it? Well, you can't.
You can only control what you can control, which is the machine itself.
Exactly.
You can't do fuck all about the truck driver if he doesn't want to listen.
100%.
And can't do anything with the pedestrian who's walking past the council thing that might jump over the bunting.
Exactly.
However, if the machine stops as soon as someone's in danger,
we've saved something.
Yeah.
And there's been, The ag industry is another big one. There's a double of fatalities in the last year in the ag space, So again, there's all these different industries, and we're learning every single day in every single industry, as to how we can look at developing innovation, to be able to, protect people, but also assets. So where we're heading now from an innovation point of view is you're running along a roadway here, there'll be comms boxes or transmissions boxes. We can actually now, and we're training the AI, you can put survey restriction pegs around key infrastructure and assets, and the AI will pick that up as an area not to go.
Interesting, because there is that lockout that is in a couple of the Trimble and Topcon things that I don't know how well it works, and I don't know how easy it is to do either, because that's the other part. They tried to vertically, I'm going to sound smart here, they tried to vertically delineate it so that they wouldn't dig over the top of services, and they would try and put it into the model that said that there was a water main 1 metre deep. Very rarely worked.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of them try to lock it out. Very rarely worked.
And look, the other way that they're looking at it is your geofence. But if you're looking at, so we're doing a lot of work in the rail sector. That's a static site continually moving. You might be moving 400 metres every single site. Now you're in a remote area. Is someone going to sit there and geofence key infrastructure assets you don't want to machine it? Bloody oath they're not. It's a pain in the ass. So how do you make it easy, and how do you make it visual to quickly go, righto, there's a transmission box. I want to make sure I don't hit it. That's going to cost A, downtime, B, damage. Blah, blah, blah.
There's going to be papers put in front of me I have to sign. It's just going to be a whole thing.
Hours, everything. So if I stick a couple of these special looking survey pegs, restriction survey pegs around, visually, Jimmy, let's say it's your site. Boys, I don't want you to hit this, this and this.
So are you saying like you just run out and let's say for ease of it, you got some bollards, some pegs that you run around. If the bollards are around something, you put 3 or 4 bollards around something that now the machine won't go in that space.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that was actually...
That sounds like a pretty smart idea.
It was not my idea, so I'm not going to take credit for it. It was actually...
You can while you're here.
No.
They might not even listen.
No. It was Rio Tinto over in WA. So we do open days with machines, get everyone to come in, jump behind the sticks and actually understand the interaction piece.
Makes it pretty simple.
Oh, bloody hell.
Because my whole part is that, okay, they have autos on diggers now.
Yep.
So it reaches down and it'll cut the grade.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, make the autos just work so that while we're digging, it doesn't go any lower.
Yep.
So that you can box out whatever you're boxing out 4 metres deep.
Yep.
And it just so happens that at the end of the day, you've cut it all to grade.
Yes.
Now, if we can cut it all to grade, why can't I cut horizontally as well? Or vertically? Well, I don't know what the direction is, but I've got a wall that I need to cut square.
Yep.
Why don't you make it that I can't reach any further into the wall?
Yes. Yep.
Well, they can't do that. For some reason, it just doesn't work.
Mathematically, GPS.
Elon Musk has a satellite somewhere that's not working. But, and that's where I got to. And I said, well, if that was easy, the company who made that would be like...
Killing it.
On
Bloody
every single machine. Imagine me going to dig a basement, floor height set, wall depth is set, go your hardest.
Yeah. And mate, it's amazing that there's some really intelligent people out there, that have got brilliant ideas, and they just don't know how to get it to market, and that's the other challenge. And
then the ones that are in market, like they've already got so much market share. So even that, if you want that autos on the digger or something, you're talking 20, 30 grand.
Bloody oath, and there's two people, and there's been 2 people for decades.
Yep, and and surely at some point there's like a smart box that you can put in it that's going to say, okay, and that's what and by the way, I don't know if there is. There's probably a guy sitting at home going, that's my product.
Yeah.
But,
how do you get it to market?
How do you get it to market? What's the...
Yeah. And then, I'll throw out to a lovely lady, Monique, who's helped us. She's at one of the major tier ones, one of the big guys. And we're in front of the board at the moment to do a rollout across all their assets, and then they're mandating down, and that's a lot of the clients that we're working with is exactly what you've experienced, where key contractors and head contractors are now, work cover. If there's a safety system in place that can stop an injury from occurring, you know,
And then that
improve
injury
safety.
or death occurs, you better have a good reason why you didn't implement something.
Look, I'm not going to lie to you. Over the last 5 years, I've presented to companies, you know, this solution, and they're like, "Oh yeah, great. Oh look, it's 2 or 3 things away," and things have happened. You know, during the 12 months to 2 years after I've presented, they've had, you know, a major event. You know, and that's you know, it's awful. You know, and it could have been avoided. And now WorkCover are on to that, and they're pushing hard into that space. And AI safety is definitely an area that's going to change the way.
We won't talk too much about pricing, but I know that my company, when we looked at it, it's not horrendously expensive for what it is. It's not like I can remember that some of the systems that came out, like the Crane Prolex systems and stuff like that, you know, you buy the digger, a few $100,000, then you add 40 grand for this, 30 grand for that, 100 grand for that, 20 grand. Now you've got a $300,000 digger that's 600,000. You go, what do you?
And am I going to get a return on it?
And am I getting a return, or is it just some guy wanting me, like I get paid $180 an hour to lift pipe,
Yep.
you know, and dig the trench for the pipe.
Yep.
But now he wants me to have a crane system installed on the digger so that I'm not overloading it.
That's a big thing that's happening at the moment. That's all coming through. And look at, safety people look to, it's an industry, that's continuous improvement. How do we continually improve, And in the 29 years I've been doing this, it first started for me, and where I saw it was double locking hydraulic hitches.
Yep. My first digger then had a manual hitch.
Banging away the pins.
My second digger had a single locking hitch, and I remember getting kicked off of a site because I didn't have a double locking hitch, and I slid the red tongue in the front. If you remember, you had that tongue in the front.
JB attachments, it was. They were the first.
And I got kicked off site because I didn't have a double locking hitch, and I remember sitting there and saying to the bloke, "What's a double locking hitch?"
Bloody oath.
And he said, "Oh, it's got a drop down thing, and it flicks the front, and
nothing can fall off."
And you go, "Okay, great." And then you get one, and it is an absolute pain in the arse to use.
Was and banging the tongues and bending the tongues, operator abuse, no warranty, and that's the journey of safety with that. Continued. That continuous improvement with safety I was talking about. So the next part was, we need, a ROPS cab. And so all of a sudden you started, there was a whole market of building, externally fitted ROPS cabs.
I had a helicopter cab Cabelco with an external ROPS on it.
And then falling object protection. I need FOPs,
which level of FOPs do you need? Do you need stage 2 FOPs or 3 FOPs? I've been through this. And handrails. So I've spoken about this a little bit, but, you have a guy, he's not a mechanic. He's not a trained mechanic. And I can remember I was having a problem on a site because they're like, he has to do a pre-start and he has to get up and check the oil every day. And I go, well, first off, I don't really want him to check the oil every day because I want to have a mechanic to check. But I understand. I understand what you're saying. And then they're like, he doesn't have handrails. And I said, okay. So then we installed the handrails. And then they said, your handrails aren't at the right height for the thing because you've installed... Because, mind you, the first set of handrails, me and my mate welded up in his shed over a weekend. And then put on to a SK135-2.
And then you started tracking it, and they started cracking, and the brackets started cracking.
And I couldn't understand it. And then I can remember Delta Rent had a machine on site, and they had the wire braided at the bottom. And I thought, the genius, absolute genius. Here, me and my mate Jason have welded up a pair of
hard steel all the way, and shaking and cracking everywhere.
And shaked and cracked the part. But I got onto the job and they were happy with it, but they complained about the height. And so what we did was I said, absolutely no problem. So we just welded another 100 mil on top.
Put some spaces in there or something.
No, because we hard welded it on top of the thing.
Okay,
so there was no way to put spaces. So we just made it looked okay. We painted it black.
The job.
But it's that evolution of it there, and then I got some next gen cats. And the next gen cat, if you remember, they had the step down part, so you actually didn't need the handrails because you were never within a live edge. You'd have the bump rail. And then that night got shut down at a job again because of the fact that they said no, they wanted handrails anyway, even though it was actually to the letter of the legislation that it didn't need it.
And then they want you to have multicoloured lights on the top. So that evolution of safety.
You got multicoloured lights for the AI stuff, your green lights and your orange lights now?
We don't worry about the lights at the top. We just worry about the people around, And so with with the development of our AI, we've now been able to configure any zone around the machine, but with 99.6% accuracy. So
you hear that, folks? 99.6.
99.6.
That's high.
Yeah, there's 140 million frames of data every day the AI learns from. So it's been around. Safety Shield's been working on it since 2016. They were the first in the world. Shit. And I'd like to understand why someone starts a business. And I've been over the UK a number of times to meet Jonathan Guest. He's the founder. They got the King's Award last year for innovation. So he met King Charles. It's the highest award you can get for a business out of the UK. And I said to Jonathan, mate, why? And I looked into his history, and he was a piling and rigging contractor.
Okay.
So blue collar, steel caps, everything that we do. And he goes, mate, I lost a mate on site when a machine hit him. And he goes, that was a turning point. And he goes, that's why I started,
Shit.
And understanding that why, I sort of went, right, well, you're going to continue to push.
Yeah. You're not stopping until you're broke or it works.
Yeah, bloody oath. And he's, stuffed around with, sort of car sensor stuff and the radar stuff and all that sort of thing that wasn't really feasible. And then you had the RFID card stuff. Well, people would forget it and run out of battery, blah, blah, blah. A lot of human chance.
That RFID, that didn't really take off too hard in Oz, I don't think.
No.
But there was a bit of it out there.
Been a major contractor in tunnel stuff.
Yeah, and I had a job that came to us and asked to get it. And by the time I looked into it and trying to make it so that I could report on it and everything else like that, it was impossible. Like,
absolutely.
For the business of the size that we were, and probably still, let's say, the size I am now, impossible.
Yeah.
It was just so difficult.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we ended up talking a bit about your stuff, because it's actually not that difficult.
Not difficult at all. We can set a zone within 2 minutes around a machine. Stick a couple of cones out, and you get a visual to know where your yellow zone out of protocol, and then you're in a red zone, high risk zone, and you can do that within 2 to 3 minutes. And when we first started down this journey, we were like, great, this is working, it's brilliant. I proof of concept 1,000 times on my own equipment before I even went out to market. And it was old man John Burton, who I was referring to before. I said, John, I need you to come out. I'm going to fit a system on one of your diggers. And I said, I want you to walk from behind the machine that's going to swing at you. The operator won't know when, how, whatever. And we're going to stop the machine and we're going to grab data around it. And we're going to look at behaviour change, culture change. And he's, old man John, I think time was 75 odd, and he goes, oh, you're going to kill me finally. And I said, no, John, I bloody hope not. It'll kill the idea if it is. But anyway, we did that. And we like our marketing and we've got our own videographer and editor and in turn that within 10 days, with no promo, no anything, it was just organic, got 1 million views, and all of a sudden...
Maybe we'll clip that in. What do you reckon, Louis? Why don't we find that on the internet?
Yeah, we can find
it across.
Yeah.
We'll clip that in. you've sold it to everyone too now. So we'll clip it in after this. If everyone thinks it's shit, And
it was, so we were wrapped as our development with key major mining, tier one, waste, et cetera, we're building, and we're very fortunate to be onboarding, installing with pretty much every single one of them now, But what we found out real quick, Jim, was the number of high-risk events that are occurring on site will blow your mind.
Is ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolute complacency. I think the front end of safety and inductions is brilliant and has improved markedly. When the boss ain't around, or when the safety bloke ain't around, or when there might be pressure, or just simple complacency. The things that we've seen are pretty scary. So our challenge after that, one major tier one, major site, 3,000 red zone events, 14-ton rubber tired excavator. Blokes walking as the rubber tired digger's moving. There's a 40-foot container, less than a metre. They're moving in between it. And if that digger just slewed just a touch, those guys would have been crushed. Videos like that.
I had a big event happen a long time ago. I can't even remember the last time I thought about this, but I was down a ramp. We were digging in some culverts, and I was placing the culverts, big concrete.
Yep.
There was about 9 million labourers hanging around, and they'd left the lengths of the chain fucking like 3-4 metres long.
Yep.
I think I was in a 25 or 30, might have been 35. And so I had to back up the ramp, had to have full stick down.
Yep.
And then I'm backing back up the ramp, but she's pretty steep and these chains are swinging. And like I said, every dickhead standing around on their phone.
Yep.
And I had a spotter on both sides giving me a thumbs up, watching the chain, making sure it's like that. As I'm backing up, a truck pulls in behind me and stops.
Oh.
Those spotters watching the chains, I kept backing until I went on top of the cab because the tracks came and then they chewed into the door and I went that far into the door. Truck driver bails out.
Yep.
And then you've got a digger on top of a fucking cab of a truck, spotters saying, oh, yeah. And, well, I didn't tell him to stop because I was watching the chains. And they go, there was no reverse camera. It was a long time ago, so no reverse camera in the digger back then. And, you could have killed the bloke, but all of those protocols were there.
Oh, bloody oath.
I'm a trained digger operator, although I've brought up 2 events today that make me sound pretty shit. But I drove diggers for a long time too. I'd probably put...
It's third party around the machine.
Yeah.
And what are they focusing on? What do they believe the risk is?
So that guy was not there. That truck was not there. And because they were so low, the culverts were like, let's say 3-4 metres down.
Yep.
So the spotters are down there and no one, and I'm just a digger operator, no one's actually put the controls in place that says there's actually a live road behind where
you're going.
Where I'm going. And that's where I have to go to hook back on to the next section.
Yep.
And so just a gap.
Oh,
there was just a gap there.
Yeah.
And there was no way to do it. I couldn't slew around and get back up there.
So you're on a big batter.
I'm backing back up.
Yeah.
And it's those sorts of things that you...
Holy shit. Yeah.
I think I was actually on hire driving someone else's machine. It caused them a real drama.
Mate, it is a drama. And the thing is, what we very, very quickly realised is the amount of red zones, amount of breaches of protocol are huge, but how the hell does a company deal with it? Because you can die by data, and we build a safety intelligence, we call it our SIP, safety intelligence platform. And where I think the data piece and the learning, I'm a pretty basic bloke, didn't get a degree, didn't have that smarts about me, but I believe I'm not too bad at most things, but I can't sit there and read data day in, day out. Now, most people in the industry that I've been lucky enough to be in for 29 years, they're not dissimilar to myself. Deliver it to me simply. Make it easy to understand so I can institute change.
Your blokes keep walking from the back of the machine.
100%. So part of our safety intelligence platform is where does the risk come from?
Yeah.
And we give you a stat, and then I break down, it's really easy, just bar charts, and then we have a bio area, which is behaviour improvement opportunity, which are those red zone events that we put in there to be able to educate and learn. So I suppose the questions that we ask, most of our customers, what's the most dangerous machine you have in your fleet in regards to people and plant? What part of the site is the highest risk? Where people and plant come together? How many near misses did you have across your site today against the other site? How do we, continue to improve? How do I get that data really simply and easily? So 50% of what we do is installing the system, training the team, and having a light bulb moment with operators. So Fulton Hogan, we're doing a lot of work with those guys. First thing that the operators do, and this is my first interaction, and I'm very, very fortunate. I've got a brilliant team that are good with detail and ops, and my business partner, Michael Depisha. Our ops team are brilliant, great with detail because I'm not. So I spend a lot of time at the coalface. Old John Burton taught me that. And I want to educate the guys as to the benefit of the company investment that they're making into this safety. So my first point was a question I asked yourself, Jim, was have you been on a machine or been on a site where there's been an injury? And every hand shoots up straight away. And I said, how'd it make you feel? And every single one, mate, I could see it, in you, mate. I could
10 years ago too,
and you feel it.
I can remember that happening, and I'm certain that a lot of people, it's like having a car accident. Everyone's had a car accident at some point, and
the emotion comes back to you. You know, and I've been on sites where we've done handovers and we've done training, and blokes have had the worst, where they've had a fatality on site with people on plant, you know, and that happens every single year. So they, you know, I go, wouldn't you have loved to have complete control over your work area? And your work area is not in the cab. Your work area is everywhere around it. Well, your company's investing in a safety system that's going to give you complete control over your work area. And there's a light bulb moment with operators, because when we first started pushing out, we had 1 million views and all these wonderful things. I just got inundated and bashed by operators. You're making bloody sites dummy, you're this, you're that, you know, and all, you know, how do you set a zone? You know, one zone doesn't fit all. Wonderful commentary, and we got bashed heavily. And we made sure we replied to every single one of them, you know, because we learn from commentary.
I get bashed off, and mate, I'll still reply to every single
one. Yeah,
you know,
exactly
you
that.
Gotta.
And it's and we learn the most from interaction. I'm not a good operator at all, you know. I'm come from finance and knowing equipment, but
You've got very soft hands.
Bloody
I can see it from
look
here.
at them,
Moisturised.
Nivea every day on my face as well, mate. You know, I'm getting old. But we're given complete control. You know, and there's no other system, you know, that's been in place that's been able to give an operator complete control of their workspace. You know, as they're getting a little bit close, why's that guy entered the yellow zone there? You know, and does he keep coming into the red? Where that emotion you felt, we can make sure that never happens again. You know, and there's a light bulb moment with operators to go, brilliant, this is great.
Because everyone's been there where they go, ooh, shit, something's just happened. But just while we're up to the last 10 minutes, I did want to pick your brain about a business side of things.
Yep.
You guys did hand back the Case dealership, I believe, or something along those lines.
Yeah, look, we came to a mutual agreement. Yeah.
How does that go? Because everyone who has just listened to you for however long, the last 45 minutes, you are a driven man who, like, doesn't mind his face against the grindstone.
No,
How do you get to the decision where something's not working? Because I know myself that I've had a couple of instances where shit just don't work, and it's a kick in the guts when it doesn't. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. You put, you know, we realised that at large corporate level, well beyond our control, decisions can get made that can pretty much put you out of business.
Yeah.
You know, and we realised that there was that overseas forces wanted to change the distribution piece, you know, and potentially that could have sent us out of business overnight.
So not many people understand who owns Case and what else do they own?
Yeah, so Case is huge. So Case is owned by the Feed Group, and they're an Italian-based company, and that they own Case IH Ag, New Holland Ag, which is their massive part of their business, Iveco, Maserati, Ferrari, Case Construction, New Holland Construction. You know, a huge business, a huge global business.
The same business running, you know, Case excavators is also building Ferraris.
3 times bigger than Cat worldwide as a group, you know.
Iveco, it's pretty impressive. But it does mean that you are just a really small fish with a huge fish in the pond.
We are. And 4.5 years ago when they made decision to change distribution, which was their decision to make, we quickly realised that we don't have much control over our future and we needed to make some changes. So 4 years ago, we started diversifying our revenue. You know, Case was probably 90% of it at the time. And our goal was not to reduce numbers and to continue to deliver to our, because I'd sold with bloody blood, sweat and tears and passion to my clients to say I'm going to care for them when they buy a Case.
Yeah.
You know, so we never stopped in doing that. But the revenue dropped, or the share of our revenue, we went up to 180 odd million in revenue, branches everywhere around the country. And we bought the Bandit business, which was brilliant. We've doubled that business, you know, since we've taken it over. And we also started into this safety space, which was great. And then earlier on this year, through mutual agreement, you know, we could see where our business direction was going. Case certainly, and the distributor certainly wanted to continue on their path. And we probably, it was a great timing to mutually agree to part ways, you know. And it was difficult because it's something you're given 10 years of your life to.
That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, like, you've just been the captain of the ship for 10 years. And now you're the one who's actually, or you're part of it saying, you know, I don't want to be the captain anymore. And it's a bit challenging. I know that there would have been some really hard conversations being had.
Absolutely, yeah, because the time frame of the change surprised us a touch. We thought it might be a 90-day period. It ended up being a amount load shorter than that. So that put a lot of pressure on us as a business. You know, we had to close down branches. We had to downsize our staff, and we had to do that really quickly.
But you would have had. The other problem that I see is that, like, you've built the machine to run. Like you just mentioned the number 180 million. You know, there's properties tied into that. There's there's subcontractors tied into that rely on you guys for everything.
Hydraulics, bloody all that sort of stuff.
And then, like, you've got a dealership that you own a mortge on. You know that you bought. Now all of a sudden that dealership ain't selling shit.
Yeah, bloody oath. And it was quick and it was tough. But everything happens for a reason.
Of course.
And where as that sort of occurred, a lot of those major big tier one mining, civil, waste, after working on those deals for 3-4 years, I've been working on them. They're like, righto, Chris, we're ready to go. And I'm like, fantastic. And that's that was a wonderful, wonderful change. I won't lie to you. Extremely sad to say goodbye to a lot of really good people. We had to let probably 70 people go at the time.
That ends up being the worst part, the best part, the really the only part in business ends up being the people you're dealing with,
exactly,
and the people you employ and the people you work for and everything else. It's just, you've mentioned some names in here which are pivotal names of your life. I can go through my ones. That ends up being the real story, the people.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And it's tough on some ways, and in other ways, you've got some great businesses that are thriving with new people and stuff like that you can throw yourself into.
That are going to grow beyond where we were, And the beauty of it is we've got an opportunity, from innovation. I can control the innovation piece. We can control the innovation piece. The next thing will be, driver impairment AI. So not only are we looking after around the outside.
They've got some in trucks now that are
fatigue management.
Yeah, when saying people are sleepy in trucks.
Yeah, fatigue management's a big thing. So a lot of our majors have gone, can you do fatigue management? Been around a while, getting smarter and smarter. We've been approached by a global leader in that technology, but also they've created an impairment. So they'll understand, Jimmy, how you drive. And in the first 5 minutes, if you're driving impaired erratically or anything like that, it'll now pick that up. So we'll look to release that and partner.
Isn't that going to be interesting? Because I have a question. I've got a driver. I've given him his 12, 14 hours off.
Yep.
Where does employment law sit if he rocks up impaired, like, let's say fatigued?
Yep.
That really I should kick him out the truck or have him stop or whatever it might be? Or,
it'll almost tell you.
Yep.
It'll almost tell you.
And then if I do kick him out of the truck and he does come to work impaired for whatever reason, do I have to pay him for that day? And what are my legal obligations for that employee? Because he has rights under employment law.
Yeah, it certainly does. Certainly does. So we're...
it's going to be a really interesting space.
Yeah,
because...
I want to understand impairment before the accident. So company we're working with, and we'll release it pre-Christmas, very confident of that. And that is brilliant because if they are driving erratically, if something's happened at home, if something's gone wrong, or if they've had a big night, blah, 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 I want to know before they hurt someone. In regards to work, as soon as they step in a work vehicle, I've got 100 of the bloody things I've got to pay for. As soon as someone steps in a work vehicle and goes to my work, well, I'm now responsible for
What about, though, if you've got a new dad or a new mum who's working for you and their baby's up at night time, and now all of a sudden every time that bloke or girl or whatever gets into a car, that car tells you that they're impaired.
Yes.
And he's a mechanic who's on the road for you guys. He's a fitter.
Yep.
And you ain't got a spot for him in the workshop.
Yep.
What the hell do you do then? You can't put him on the road in good faith. You can't.
No, bloody oath you can't. No.
Who knows how long that baby isn't going to sleep for? Because anyone who's had babies understand those trenches.
You're in the 2-year-old
trenches.
You're in there.
It is
you're doing
killer. So what do you do? What do you do there?
Yeah, look, it's really comes down to the individual. My biggest thing is I don't want him to come to work and hurt someone else.
No, definitely not. And I think that's the starting point of all of this. But then we run into so many dramas afterwards, which is possibly a little bit why, as you said before, the site safety is the before you get onto the site, or the overarching safety is easier.
Yep.
The actual practical safety turns out to be much more difficult.
Oh, it certainly does.
Yeah, and the practical safety around driver impairment and jumping in behind a car. What happens to the guy who needs to take a month off because his baby's cutting a couple of teeth? And
look, it's a bloody tough thing, particularly with double working parents and things like that. You know, I suppose the way that we are dealing with any of that safety stuff, deliver the data real simple.
Yeah.
Deliver it in a way where, part of I don't bolt on a system and say, Jimmy, hope it works for you. We've got a whole 12-month change management plan. It's Gantt charted. There's key milestones that we create together, and then I'm with you for 12 months. Now, every client that we've dealt with, they've had plus 80% reduction of red zone events, within 4 months. And then we stay there for 12 months. So there's a whole culture change.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's if we can do the same when it comes to that fatigue management piece, driver impairment
I think that at the end of the day, it's just data, and it's just the companies, hopefully will have enough depth. There might be some sad cases where, someone's, got a toothache and loses his job because he's driving impaired. But overall, the greater good is less safety. Now, in the last 5 minutes, I always hand over the microphone to say to what do you want to talk about? I actually just had a really interesting guy bring it up in something in the last 5 minutes. So he
drove into angles, probably the political angles I won't go into. Last 5 minutes, Jimmy. Look, for me and for my team that we have, it's the same as yourself. We care for our team. We want to grow our team really, really well. We want to work with the right people that are brilliant. In regards to, industry, I'd love to see some forward-thinking infrastructure stuff. I'd love to, see, they're talking about housing and housing crisis and affordability of housing. Well, there's a blueprint around the world as to how you maintain affordable housing. Now, and there's also got to be a bit of a culture change with young people. I'm going to sound like an old prick now. But, your first house ain't your dream house. Your first house ain't in the fucking suburb that you want to live in,
No.
Your first three houses are probably going to be pretty shit, and they're probably not going to be where you want to be. Your fourth house might be, and there's a fair bit of sacrifice.
Isn't there an interesting dynamic shift around the fact that people now all buy new houses and build new houses? Like, I understand that that's driven our building industry, but overall, I bought an old house that was shit, and I painted it, and I think at some point it's almost a rite of passage of home ownership.
Yeah.
The first house is an absolute shit hole.
Yeah. Look, I think that reality's probably gone with the explosion of population. Both it's all based on bringing them in. And I'm not saying we don't. I've got some brilliant sponsored staff that have come from countries, like South Africa, that, and I've got a beautiful family that work for us, and I'd hold him dear, where he's come from.
And isn't it interesting with that? Like, it's almost like if you bring up the word immigration that everyone goes, oh, bad. Can't bring that up.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, like, if we're having a housing crisis and bringing in 100,000 people, it's probably going to make the housing crisis worse, eh?
Oh, it's going to make it worse.
And why don't, like, I've got some ideas to fix it, and it's got nothing to do about reducing the amount of deposit that you have to put down.
Creating a bubble.
Because all that does is everyone gets the same decrease and the house price goes up the difference.
Bloody oath. My biggest thing, Jimmy, I sit here and I just go, around the world, there's fast trains around the world, and population gets to spread.
Yeah.
Here we are in Australia. We're doing some pretty fantastic things. We're doing work on T2D project, 15 billion, South Australia's biggest project. Twin tunnel, fantastic. What an infrastructure project. Snow 2.0, et cetera, et cetera. Geez, can't we build some bloody trains to some regional areas, open it up so you can get to work? Anywhere in Melbourne, Sydney, it takes you an hour to get to work.
Can you imagine being able to live in Bendigo and it takes 40 minutes commute on the train to get to work?
100%, and enjoying the lifestyle of it.
Yeah, and instead we have V-line trains that travel at 120 but then have to slow down in all of the zones and can't get straight in. Or I know you have, and I have travelled a lot in China.
Yep.
They're fast trains. Like you wouldn't fly. Like it would be Melbourne to Brisbane would be where they start to fly. Before that, they're jumping on a train. The train does 300 to 400 k's an hour, and then they're done.
And bloody comfortable too. You're sitting
And
in nice
great,
seats,
clean, awesome.
So I'd love to see, last 5 minutes, love to see a party come out and go, do you know what? There's two things. Let's get some infrastructure that's right, that can expand the population. B, let's capture some of this bloody water. We could never have a drought again if we're brave enough to build some big dams and actually hold the water that falls on our land, And that's probably a 30 or 40-year infrastructure plan. Wouldn't that be great to make our country wealthy?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's probably a good ending there. I don't mind that at all. Chris, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much.
Yeah, loved it, Jim. Really appreciate it.
No drama. And as always, and it's actually needed, like, subscribe, comment and share to your mates, because the more you share, the more we get great guests on, like Chris, who sits down and has an awesome story to share with everyone about the industry in Australia. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate
it.
Thank
you.
Bye.